Hi, everybody. This is Des and Lauren, and we're going to be discussing today how government failure is affecting the agricultural sector.
And the agricultural sector is important to us. We need, especially local farmers or farmers that farm for the people in South Africa, to feed the people that don't grow produce in their own backyards. And you get many local farmers that do just that. And then you get the mega farmers that care more about the export market than the exchange rate. We're not talking about them now. We are talking about the people that affect you and me. The food you get on the shelf when you go to Spar, Woolworths, Checkers, ShopRite, or a local market. Those people that are important to us in South Africa.
So, we'll be looking at deteriorating roads, collapsing water infrastructure, and rising crime as barriers to a functioning agricultural sector.
And this article comes from theconversation.com. And you will find a link to this article in the description below this video, as well as in the first comment. So if you want to go through the article, please do that. This is something that affects us. Water, food are very important. Energy, shelter, these things we all need for survival. And the headline of this article reads, "Farming in South Africa is being hobbled by power cuts and poor roads. Rural towns are being hit the hardest." And it's something that many of you might be aware of, but let's look at how this is going to affect us in the near future. Because a lot of us might think, well, the shelves, the racks are still full, we're okay. But it's okay until it's not.
That can change quickly, and I think
quickly.
what's important, just a thought I want to put in there, which we'll cover at the end again, is that the international community is not our friend. No one's coming to save us. Not America, not Britain, no European countries coming to save us. And we'll discuss why at the end of the video. So this article is entitled, "Farming in South Africa is being hobbled by power cuts and poor roads. Rural towns are being hit hardest." South Africa's agricultural sector has actually had great seasons, it says. There's been growth.
2019, 2020, yeah.
2019 and 2020.
The pandemic, yes.
But yesterday we did an article where we saw
massive contraction.
Massive decline.
But that was in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. Those three important sectors together. It was more than 12% contraction. It was huge, in fact. But now again, they're expecting good crops this year.
Favorable weather conditions.
Wonderful.
Etc. Yeah. So export performance is likely to be robust, especially with weaker rand exchange rates. So lots of people benefit from a poor state, actually, a poor government state. Lots. If you work overseas or have a relative that works overseas, you want the country to fail because you want that big exchange rate difference, which makes South African products more competitively priced in the global market. So I think we should all just be honest. There are those that want the exchange rate to improve.
Especially the mega farmers.
And there's those that don't want.
Export their products. Come on. How loyal are you actually to the success of this country? Okay,
again, we see once again bad governance is good for business.
Yes, for many people.
Still, the sector is not reaching its full potential. A number of factors stand in the way of even greater successes and greater participation. Oh, yeah, we're bringing color into it. I hate that. But anyway, greater participation of black farmers in commercial value chains. I think, we should all identify South Africans. My heart breaks
it's horrible when
every time I hear color.
Yeah, it's so unnecessary. And divisive.
I think the country has a long way to go before everyone's caught up to that mindset, though. The first factor to mention, obviously, is, what do you think the thing is that's affecting agriculture the most?
Well, they need the electricity.
Power cuts.
Yeah, they need the electricity to do a lot of their work, especially with the way agriculture works now. It needs sensors, solenoids to send water supply in directions, motors to pump water, and many other things that you need. And electricity is a big part of what farmers need these days, especially with the modern farming that we have.
The agriculture sector is heavily reliant on energy. For example, recent work by the Agriculture and Food Policy Research Group, the Bureau of Food and Agricultural Policy, shows that roughly a third of South Africa's farming income depends directly on irrigation, which requires power.
Water. You have to water in agriculture. It's all about water out of dams, or you're very lucky if you can actually have a dam that could irrigate just with the height of the dam. I know the farm that my grandfather worked his whole life had a a dam that was above the vineyards. So they could literally just run the pipes down and connect them up. And that is lucky. Most people have to use electricity to pump the water to where they need it.
So we've adapted in a way that makes us dependent on so many structures working efficiently. And if they don't work efficiently, then we have nothing. So that's not very necessarily a wise way to go forward. Progress isn't always progress. But that's not the only challenge. Deteriorating roads, collapsing water infrastructure, and rising crime are barriers to functioning effectively and efficiently. So I found this interesting, that the most common complaints in your average neighborhood is also the biggest issue for the agricultural sector as a whole. These are not new issues. They've been flagged before, but they've worsened. They are a challenge for large commercial farmers as well as smaller farming enterprises. The emerging or new entrant... here we go with color again.
Just say farmers.
Anyway... farmers have limited financial resources to face the problems more accurately. So these challenges highlight the effects of weak governance across all spheres of government in South Africa. All spheres of government. It is serious for all sectors, but particularly so for agriculture, which depends on the proper functioning of essentials such as roads, water, and power.
Do you think that government actually cares about agriculture, or do they just pay lip service?
I honestly think...
Have you met anyone? You've walked the halls of Parliament. I mean, you've been in local government. Do the people speak about this passionately?
Never.
Do they actually care
about
this?
Politicians will speak about caring about the economy, but not in relation to making a country strong from inside. So unfortunately not. And I don't think agriculture, there's no emphasis in... studying agriculture, putting people into that profession. And if you look at, and this is why I really want to go to the global plan at the end, because being food secure is definitely not part of the agenda for South Africa. These challenges highlight the effects. Yes, it is serious for all sectors. So of course, failing government is serious for all sectors, but particularly for agriculture, which depends on proper functioning of essentials such as roads, water, and power. Provincial governments and municipalities have not maintained or upgraded infrastructure that would support agriculture. This is beautiful because often, I've been to many political meetings, community hall meetings, and
they blame national government.
They will always blame national government. It's a national government prerogative. Meanwhile, in this article, it's saying provincial governments and municipalities have not maintained. So local governments specifically will focus on the central metro. Even in a local government, they're going to focus on more the busy side, the metrofication of that municipality.
And even in the city of Cape Town where we live, there are farms that supply local shops in the area, the Philippi area for instance, and they want to build high-dense housing there. So, they will just shut down any farming and replace it. They want to build low-cost housing or high-dense housing on golf courses and all sorts. I think they just recently took hold of a golf course to literally build housing there. But farms, to get rid of farms, you should think about that. Maybe they are having some discussions with overseas suppliers in the halls and say, we'll just fly it in,
As they build all these smart city developments or high-dense living developments, surely they must be wondering, where's the food for these people going to come from? And if it's not locally produced, it means there's going to be a very heavy dependence on other countries. The results of this neglect over time are likely to lead to declining economic conditions and employment opportunities in small towns. So this is going to worsen the people's income already, which is already on the decline since everything we've faced over the past few years. Farming and agribusiness play a crucial role in sustaining the economies of small towns and rural areas.
And especially, yes.
So that means, rural areas will just go backwards. People will have to be moving out into
And you have to ask yourself why, especially with the whole smart city program. They want people to move into metros.
I really feel like we're all just rats in a maze in someone's lab, and they're just putting roadblocks in the way, so we are forced to take certain paths.
Yeah, I would really like to hear your input. Are you a local farmer? Are you someone that produce something for the local market? Do you sell local fresh produce, and how Has this affected you? Water, electricity, the scarcity of water, infrastructure failing, electricity infrastructure failing, and roads. Roads used to be something we spoke about often, especially when I was a young child. In the 70s and 80s, roads was everything, getting things easily to and from wherever. And it seems like roads have taken a bit of a backseat, and we've traveled the country, and there's some places where roads are just not looked after at all.
So interestingly, did you know that the Eastern Cape accounts for nearly a third of South Africa's dairy production? And the impact of poor roads has been illustrated in a specific town in Eastern Cape, where they've struggled to receive farm supplements, feeds, and diesel because of the poor state of roads, and they couldn't deliver their produce to the market. What happens to that produce that they can't deliver?
I've never seen a dairy farm out that way, so this is certainly news to me. I've learned something. And there are horrific road situations where you just can't drive on certain roads. So I ask myself, why do people just rely on the government and just blame the government for these things?
The article will actually cover that, the rising costs of farmers having to make up for that. But before we get there, more than 2/3 of South Africa's agricultural produce is now transported by roads, as rail transport has faced challenges over the years. This is a major change from 2 decades ago, when rail played an important role in transporting agricultural produce, specifically grains. And we've seen the impact of that.
Oh yeah, that is a crisis. The fact that you just allow the railway infrastructure to crumble, it means you have no interest in it actually. It means that your future plans do not involve being able to ship things easily around the country, because rail is the cleanest way of doing things, the most efficient way of using energy. Instead of having tons of cars on the road, to use the train is just better in any metro, and that's not what's happening. It's just more and more cars on the road. And that market is happy, I'm sure.
That market is very happy.
Very happy.
So I wonder what an efficient government transport system would do to that market. Different thought topic. The poor road network has forced some farmers to pay for road maintenance. They have not been able to reap the full benefit of higher agricultural output because they're incurring additional operating costs. Water has often been flagged by various agribusinesses and farmers as another major problem. So we have power cuts, deterring roads, and water being another problem.
And then there's mention of misuse of funds as well within municipalities, where they're just not spending the funds where the farmers need them.
Mm-hmm. Key is the maintenance of water infrastructure, such as dams and purification systems. Agribusinesses in some towns have had to step in and maintain water infrastructure. This again takes the financial and human capital away from businesses to public service that municipalities should be covering.
Those are expensive things. That's why you pay taxes, is so that those things
The
can
problem
be taken
is
care
people
of.
are paying tax and rates, and they are doing this out of their own pockets.
And at the end of the day, you are paying for availability of water, availability of sewage removal, availability of electricity, and yet those things aren't available all the time. And it's not like the municipality is saying, hey, we're not going to charge you the full amount because you've only had the electricity for like a third of the month, or whatever the case may be, or you haven't had water supply for 10 days, we're not going to charge you the full water availability fee, because that is to say your water will be available. And it should go towards that. And I've seen in the city of Cape Town how funds have not been allocated towards the intended use. Like all the funds that they got during the time when we had this water scarcity, when they were actually throwing the water into the sea, during that time, they collected additional charges. They've used none of it towards water infrastructure. None of it. Billions of extra money collected. So yes, municipalities like the city of Cape Town, definitely one of those examples.
So agribusinesses and farmers are also seeing a rise in corruption and crime. Commercial farming businesses have had to tighten security over the years at their own cost because of lawlessness in rural South Africa. Harvest and livestock theft affect all farmers and are much harder for new entrant farmers without a strong financial position to invest in security and technical solutions.
So they're saying if you don't have lots of money coming into trying your hand at farming, then you should rather give up, because all the things you have to overcome is just going to be too much. And this is where government subsidies come in, and most of those programs have failed. If you don't have a passion for farming, don't think that you're going to just become a gazillionaire, especially if the government is involved at all.
Why a strong agricultural sector matters, and this is where we'll end. I think it matters because it's food security. It's just a fact that the majority of South Africans are not independent when it comes to food sources. We still go to shops to purchase food and produce, and that's why we need a strong agricultural sector, never mind the employment it offers. So it actually feeds families by employing people who need the work. And I think that's suffering quite a lot in this financial year.
And another thing to consider is that you might want to grow certain things in your own home, because if the sector is suffering, what are you going to do if the sector cannot provide for your needs and there's no more food on the shelves? Consider that. Think about that.
South Africa faces a high unemployment rate at just under 33% of the first quarter of 2023. Rural areas tend to face the harsh effects of the poor economic conditions. Resolving the unemployment crisis requires that all economic sectors perform optimally, especially the primary sectors with an ability to absorb even the least skilled labor. Agriculture is one sector, while agribusiness and agro-processing also present a range of employment opportunities.
You know, South Africa is a place that is rich in opportunities for agriculture. And I think we should encourage people to be rural farmers, supplying produce to their communities and for themselves. It is a form of self-reliance for a country. Definitely. And for a country's economy. And I really thank you for showing interest in this content and for listening to this video. And really, I want you to discuss this with your family. Consider what we've spoken about, the fact that farmers are maybe not taken care of the way they should, especially your local farmers that supply your local markets.
Nothing's been taken care of the way it should. And I see, in my opinion, it has nothing to do with... It's got to do with more than just the government being incompetent or useless. If you look at Agenda 21 and everything that's been put in place across the Western world mitigating climate change, we don't want, if you look at the ones from the world leaders, World Economic Forum, and the ideology behind Agenda 21, they do not want people consuming too much, eating meat, for instance, flying in aeroplanes. And agriculture, obviously, I wonder what our carbon footprint would be considered. So with that in mind, I don't think, this is why I say no one's coming to help us. Not America, not Britain, not Europe. They're not coming to help us. And I feel like a lot of people believe that there is going to be some knight in shining armor coming to rescue us from this terrible government. But this failing government actually feeds into a global plan to control the population.
Absolutely. And one thing that's important to me is that we have farmers that are loyal to the country, not loyal to the exchange rate because they want to export their products overseas. Most of the time, if you see fruit and vegetables in the market, it's normally from local farmers. Most of the export farms that get massive investment, billions of investment, you don't hear of these farmers complaining because they're making an absolute killing, selling their produce to overseas markets, funded by the Land Bank and many other institutions. These people do not sit on the benches with the normal public. They are very, very well off and in a different class altogether. So those are not the farmers that I am talking about. They have the finances to look after themselves. The farmers that are loyal to the country, that's not going to run away when things get tough, those are the farmers that we need, and we need to support them every way that we can. And we need a new governance system in this country so that we can make it possible for them to flourish. Because currently, quite frankly, I don't think our government cares
about anything.
Except their salaries and bums on seats, of course. And votes in a local election, national elections, votes, bums on seats, salaries. And our government has become a huge conglomerate. It's probably the largest organization in the country, which is absolutely ridiculous.
It's true job creation.
Yeah, true job. 60% of every tax rand goes towards government salaries. And these are not politician salaries. Nope. And the people are clearly not doing their job.
And just to end on a slightly positive note, there is hope still. We can survive complete government deterioration and collapse, and at the same time, we can build something completely new. So that's
what this channel is about.
Those are things we'll be definitely bringing in the future, and I look forward to sharing those things with you.
Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and click the bell icon to get notifications for future videos. And consider sharing this with your friends and your family.